Alright, so I got a problem with this mower. Apparently this stick boom or dipper is it's coming in, and the mower deck is, while you're mowing, it just randomly flips up. So this operates, well, first of all, it's an Alamo industrial Machete mower, 60-inch rotary. It's from 2005, I believe. At least the tractor is, so I believe it's from 2005. They do have a Machete 2. I think this is a Machete 1. I'll put a link in the description so you can see the service manual if you want. But anyway, so that's the problem we're having. Apparently it was doing it quite a bit, and I drove it around. I got the mower head to flip up once. It just randomly, hydraulically came up, and you could hear the pump whining, holding it hard up. So I hit the button to cause it to tip down, and it kind of just leveled out and stopped the pump from working. And then I let go of the down button, and it just started humming again. So the pump started working again up. I hit the up button, and it came out of it, and it stopped doing it. So a couple of operators complained about it. One said he could hit the down button and hold it, and it would come out of it. And then, as I used it yesterday, it wouldn't come out doing that. So, anywho, so where I'm at right now is I want to recreate it while I have a scope on it. So this is the valve block. This is the electric section, and over here is a mechanical section. So you can actually put a wrench on this. This is like a mechanical linkage to the spool valve that goes back and forth. It comes up like a little teardrop in there, and it will rotate back and forth, and it will actually manually move those valves if you have some type of electrical problem and you got to get it back in the cradle or something. So that is an option. This valve is the one that I'm having the main trouble with, which is the one that's flipping up. And then this valve here is the other one that's having an issue, which is for the dipper, causing it to swing in. So these three here are progressive valves, and these two here are progressive controls, and these two here are just on-off controls. So it's open or shut. It's not progressive like these ones are. So this one is for the mower. Now I was thinking initially that if I couldn't kind of recreate it, I could swap these two plugs, and that is what they say to do in the service manual. But this one has this lockout on it. So if I swap those two plugs and I use the other side of the switch, so instead of using the tilt for the mower head, I can use this valve, and this is for the door that's on the mower. So the door is right there on the front edge, and that will flip that up. So that way, if the mower flipped up on its own while we're using the other side of the switching, then we would know that the problem is in the hydraulics and not in the electrics. But because of this valve here, I don't think I can do that, because it will still control this valve, but this one has like a lock solenoid on it right here. And if we're hitting the other switches, it may not open this one. So like this one here is the only plug that's got 3 wires on it. The rest of them all have this single wire right there. It's not a single wire, but it's a single feed, and it's got the two it's got 3 wires in there, 3 or 4 wires in there. But it's like I say, this one is the only one that's got the extra wiring on it, which I believe is this wiring right here, because they splice off of the 2 feeds there. So the older style valves have a solenoid on this end and a solenoid on this end, and it'll pull this way or pull this way. These ones are a little bit confusing to me because I have not used them or done anything with them. But this spool valve will go this way and this way, but there's only one plug that goes in. So here's the one plug that goes in. Now you got the flat blade is a ground. The number 1 is a voltage supply. The number 2 is, I think that's number 2. They're labeled, but yeah, okay, so this one's number 1, this one's number 2. So number 1's got 12 volts, this one's a ground, this one over here isn't used, and this one right here is half of the supplied voltage. Now they don't tell me how to test these, they just tell me that that's what you're looking for, so I'm gonna guess that's what I'm looking for with it in a neutral position. The way I think this works is because the half voltage is the one that's the manipulated voltage to make the valve move. So I believe that the closer you bring this to 0, the farther the positive and negative will allow it to pull the valve one way. And the closer you bring this to positive, or to 12 volts, then the more you allow it to pull the valve the other way. That's how I think it works. I'm going to put a scope on here and I'm going to actually verify that that is how it works. But that's the only thing I can think of, because like I say, you've got a supplied ground, you've got a supplied 12 volt, that doesn't change. The only thing that changes is this one, and the only thing you can do is raise the voltage or lower the voltage. It's not going to bring it below ground to negative, and it's not going to bring it above 12 volts. So that's the only thing I can think of, is that that's how that works. Being that this valve and this switch is an on-off, basically, or an all the way open, all the way closed. It's not progressive like the other 3. See, the other 3 operate off of a potentiometer inside the handle. These 2 operate on just push buttons. So I'll be able to probably tell fairly easily by just hooking a scope up to it and seeing what it does. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get that all set up, and then I'm going to see how that functions. Alright, so you're not going to be able to look at this at all, I'm guessing. But I shall narrate. So, channel 1, yellow, which is this one down here, that's hooked up as the 12 volt positive. So that's full voltage. Channel 2 is the manipulated one, which is going to be the green one. So it should be half voltage. And channel 3 is the ground. Right? Yeah, so channel 3 is the blue. So I got the blue hooked up on the ground, and well, I don't have the right color, but yellow is full voltage, and the red one here, which is actually the green one there because I grabbed the wrong cable, but it doesn't matter, is the manipulated one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in, I'm going to start it, and hopefully none of my stuff gets sucked in there, and I'm going to see what it does. I'll just take it with me because you're not going to see that anyway. So, another part of me thinks that it might be the contacts at the plug might be dropping out, because they didn't seem to hold very hard when I put the little adapters in, or the pieces of terminal. They're the same size as the terminal that's in there, and I mean, they went in there, but they really only grab on the very tip of it. It's not like it's a full terminal, because they're like recessed so far in the block. So I mean, that could be a problem too. It could be losing a connection there, because like I say, if we lose one or the other, that's where I'm thinking it's kind of going haywire. So it thinks that we're making a selection, but in actuality it's just losing connection.
Oh, hey, there's a brush cutter right here.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of weird, that first where it kicked up, I actually was trying to go down. See, now it's stuck. Let's see what that did. just did it. Hopefully this is recording. Positive. Review. Alright, so I didn't catch it doing. I kind of screwed up. I was a little unfamiliar with the scope. I don't use the scope very much. This is only like the second or third time I've actually used this one. And I forgot exactly how to use it. So I didn't have my channel 1 set up right, because you gotta go down here and you gotta select the channel and you gotta set your voltage. So I got all the voltages set at 2 volts or 20 volts. I set the sweep to 2 seconds because I don't need a really fast one, because I just need to kind of see what's going on at the time. And it's pretty slow stuff. It's not really any type of high-speed signal. So what I did was I turned it on. I lowered the deck. I raised the deck. I lowered the deck, and I raised the deck. So the first one, here's where we come at first one. So this is the channel 2, which is green on here, but it's red over here. So this is the what's supposed to be the half a volt, or the half of the channel 1, or the pin 1. Now what's actually happening is, so pin 1 is staying at 0, and when you lower it, pin 3, which is supposed to be half of that, is actually going up to 12 volts. So that goes and runs along at 12 volts. You probably can't see it all, but it's right up there, 12 volts. And right here we drop where I let it off. I left a little bit of a delay, and then what's happening is pin 1, which is supposed to be 12 volts all the time, is going from 0 to 12 volts. Let's see if let's stop this. I'll go down channel 2. We'll go and set display channel 1 so we can make sure. So channel 1's at 0 now. Channel 1's going up to 12 volts and run it across. Oops. Back up to review. So that's when I'm tipping up. So then I let off, goes back to 0. So I run along at 0 here. So then I tipped it down. Pin 2 went up to 12 volts. I held it there and I let it off. It dropped down. All right. Yeah, it dropped down, so that kind of like stumbled there a little bit. So I run along, tipped it up. Pin 1 goes up to 12 volts. And that's all that I did. So now I know how it works, which is, unless this is some type of different valve, or maybe I'm looking, maybe it's not a Machete 1, maybe it's a Machete 2, and it's a little bit different. I'll have to look for the thing, but yeah, it just says Machete on it. It doesn't say 2. I'll have to look into it and see if it's a 2. Maybe it operates a little differently, but the way it looks like to me is, it looks like you got a ground, and then you get positive one side, negative on the other side, and that's how it functions. So you put positive to one, negative to the other, and that's how the valve goes back and forth. So initially what I had thought, I mean, I don't even know why they put that in there now, but right now it's functioning properly. It's going up and down. I need to get it where it's stuck on and see what actually happened. So now that I know what I'm looking for, I got to get in and kind of mess around with it and see if I can get it to do it again and then see what's happening. It did it a couple of times, but I hadn't had this all set up right, so I didn't know what I was looking for. And when you come back and you go up and down, it's like it's hard to tell exactly which part was where it was messing up. So I need to get it to mess up and then not touch anything and get out and look. So that's what I'm gonna try to do. So I'm kind of just driving around messing with this, and I got it to, see, that's another complaint. See how it's coming in on its own like that? That was another issue that this thing is having. So I'll put it out there. I wasn't getting it to do this earlier. I was only getting it to do the little flip up of the head. So I just got the head to flip up, and I went out and looked, and I'll go back over on the scope with you, but it is getting power to the actuator. So we got an electrical problem, is why that's happening. I kind of thought that was an electrical problem just because of how quickly it was doing it. It wasn't like it was creeping up, it just went up like I had it actuated. So that's the problem with the head. So I got to figure out where I'm getting my issue. It might be in the controller itself, but somehow it's getting supplied power to that actuator. And yeah, so I'm just kind of toying with it a little bit. So you got the problem with the booms coming in, what is it called, the dipper. So if I bring it in and let it go, it kind of wants to creep a little bit. Well, it's not doing it now, but I say it just did it a minute ago. So I'm gonna bring this back inside, or pull it back up in front of the garage doors, and I'm gonna try to track down where I might be getting this power supply from. So there ain't really a ton of places it can come from. Basically, it just, the wiring, the only thing that's different, or the only thing that's connected to the machine on this mower head is just a power wire, a ground wire. Well, I don't know if it has a ground wire. A power or ground, and then there is a lockout that goes to the starter through this master switch, so you can't start it if that switch is on. And there might be one more wire, but basically this mower attachment is all added on to the tractor, and it's, like I say, only like 3 or 4 wires that actually connect it to it. Other than that, it's all self-contained. I don't believe there's any type of separate modules. It just, you've got the control unit here, and then it comes out and it goes through the floor, and then a harness will go up to the front to those valves, and that's basically what it is. So I'm gonna park this, put the boom away, and I'll look at the scope and see what we got. Alright, so this is a little bit better. So we'll preview. We'll cut back. So right here, this yellow channel, this is the up version, or not the up version, but sorry, it's the up command. What was it, the green one? The green one was the, I think, the down command. So basically, I re-looked at the wiring diagram, and those two functions, so the door and the tilt up, which is what we're looking at now, they don't operate like the other 3 functions do. The other 3 are progressive functions. These are all the way on or all the way off, or all the way one way, all the way the other way. So it didn't say anything about how they're all the same. By the way, they're all the same actuators and all the same valves, but these ones function differently. So basically, these ones, you've got the ground in the middle, you've got a power over here to go one way, and a power over here to go the other way. The other 3 functions are progressive because they run off of potentiometer, but these 2 don't. It didn't say anything about how the valves operate electrically. It just told me that's what I was looking for, which was what I said earlier, where I got the power on one, and then the voltage on the other, and a ground on the other one. So those, more than like that way that works is more than likely only for the progressive valves. So by having the scope hooked up, we found that the way that this valve, or these 2 commands, work is by one feed does one way, the other feed does the other way. So this is what happened. I wasn't moving it, at all, and then it just curled up and came up. And right here is at the valve, and this is our up command. So we could see that we're coming along here, and we're high. We're at 12 volts because it happened for probably like 10 seconds. It happened long enough for me to stop the machine, put it in park, get out, and go up and look at the scope and see that I had gotten it. So you can see we had a quick spike right there where it came off for a brief second, and then here we go, and now we're up. So now we're being commanded up. So what was that? So basically it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. About 15 seconds that was being commanded up. And then it kind of went along again, and then it started again, and then I hit the button to try to get it to stop working the pump, and then that's where it dropped out. So we could see here that we don't have a valve problem, at least not with that function. We might have a valve problem with the other function. I'm going to say that we probably, I don't know, it's a little early to say. I haven't diagnosed the other one, but I will. It kind of stinks that the dipper creeping in wasn't doing that this morning. It's doing it now, so maybe it's a temperature related issue. But basically, I had the plug set up and the wire and the scope set up so I could catch the boom coming up. But I'm gonna venture a guess that our problem is going to be electrically, and both the functions are going to be an electrical problem, just because we already have an electrical problem. So there's nothing saying that it ain't going to be a more than one system or function. So I might set it up to look at the other function, the progressive one, and see what we get, so I can identify how those ones function, and maybe we can get it to act up as well, and then we can get an idea of whether that one is a hydraulic issue or a electrical issue as well. I'm going to gather that what we're going to have is we're going to have a fluctuating signal on the on that second, on the number 2 pin, and that's where it's gonna kind of like pull it one way or the other way. So the valve is going to move back, the spool is going to move back and forth, and then that other wire is going to either pull it one side of ground or the other side of ground and allow it to kind of float back and forth. That's what my idea is. We'll find out. So I'm gonna try to hook this up onto the other valve and see what we get with that one. Alright, you probably can't see this, but there's our 0. So the blue's running at 0, or just above. I mean, it's just a smidge above. It might be like like an 1/8 of a volt. So blue's our ground. That's running at, let's say, 0. It's so close, it doesn't really matter. Channel 1. Channel 1's running at 13 volts. That's a yellow channel. That is the 12 volt power in. So channel 2. Channel 2 is our number 2. So that one is going to be half of 13. So it looks like we're about 7. Just a little over 7. Or just a little over 6. Maybe 6.5. So it's doing what it's supposed to do. I'm going to operate the machine, and then I'm going to see what it does. Alright, so let's look at this. So we're looking at the green one. You see how we dipped down? I believe that was me pulling it in. And then it should have went up. Okay, so this is part where we start, because I bumped it a little bit. So I think up is coming in, because that's how I did it. I brought it in first, out first, in first, out. So we're going up closer to positive. That brought it in, and it is variable because I went like smooth. I progressively went all the way to a maximum. So you see it goes up, down, and then how we went out. Now we're down low. Now we're back up high. And now we're down low. So that was out. So I'm going to, now we see our baseline is what? So we're at the green. We're about six, let's say about 6.5 volts, I guess. So I'm gonna hook this back up. I can already tell you it's an electrical problem because it was doing it while I was trying to unhook the scope, and I pulled the wire out of the plug. It stopped. So I'm gonna hook it up and we're gonna give that a look. Alright, so I decided to try to track down the power supply to the tilt solenoid. So basically it was the yellow wire, which I had on the number 1, I believe. So that is this right here, which is pin S through the plug. So I came up top, found pin S through the plug, and they're all labeled in there on that round plug. So I found pin S, and it is the purple and white wire. That's right here. So it's that purple and white wire that comes up. It turns into this white and green wire, and it goes through here. So I'm trying to figure out how we could get power to that wire without, I mean, it's got to be a short with the power, unless it's something in on the control panel up there that's causing it, which is a possibility as well. But it looks, in this housing here, this has a ground on it, right there. I could see it, that little nut. So that should be a ground to this case. So I was trying to figure out a way that maybe we're getting cross power to this without blowing the fuse, because it has to be coming from one wire to the next wire. So I was looking in the handle here, and I assumed that all of the wiring to these potentiometers, because these are the potentiometers here that cause the progressive controls to progress. So I was looking for the rotate one or the swing one, and it's not down here. It's actually up inside the handle. So if you look at right there, if you see the shaft, you can see that the whole top moves. So I look down here and I'm looking at the wiring, and I notice that the wiring doesn't move. So that means up here, that wiring goes through that rod, and this handle is rotating right where the wiring is. So I'm thinking that maybe this is isolated enough, because there's a rubber boot right there that goes between this and this case here, and it's painted pretty good, but I mean, it's not, there's screws through there, but you see you got those plastic washers on there too. So I'm thinking maybe that this handle is isolated from the ground of the chassis. So I could have a short in the handle up here where it rotates, jumping from one wire to the next wire, and causing us to get our power, because there is power that comes up here. So here's our switch here. I mean, obviously you have to have power up there to send power down. So this red wire goes in to the rocker switch that's up here, which I believe is this switch here. I'm not exactly sure because I don't really see a switch itself. So, but I think that that's it. It's, I mean, you could, it's not labeled very well with colors. So I can see over here we got the wiring. These are for the progressive controls, the swing and the dipper, and the main boom, the lift boom. So we got power that runs up into there, because this, the X one I believe, is the one that rotates up in the top. So that is the set of wires here. So there's power on one of these, and then there should be power on another one in this pack here that goes up in there on these 5 too, because we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, looks like 6 wires that go up in there. This, I assume this was for the rocker switch. It looks like there's been a wiring repair done already, because this wire here goes up there for some other type of control. Which one is that? That is the yellow. So that actually might be power. Got yellow down here, so that might be our power wire going up there. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, so you can see this was spliced in off of this one. So obviously they had a problem with this wire where it broke up in there, and you couldn't get a wire through, so you sacrificed this wire and this plug and spliced it in down here, and probably spliced it in up here. So I'm thinking maybe our problem is going to be up in here. Alright, so I got this rehooked up. So kind of what I'm thinking on this dipper valve is, I think that the voltage from the controller is staying the same, and then the voltage from the power supply, so the 12 volt power, I think that is actually what's dropping down. So because that's dropping down, it's essentially raising the controlled voltage, or the controller voltage. So I've got these wires run into the cab where I can monitor the voltage supply to the valve and the voltage supply at the valve. So basically I'm tapped in here, and I'm tapped in at the supply right there. So we got power. This is right off of, pretty much power comes in, it goes into a bus bar, or it comes in, goes up into the main switch, comes down, goes into a bus bar that all the power supplies go into. There's like 7 or 8 of them just kind of plugged into all the holes. This is one of the taps off there, and this is also the one for the dipper control. And then I'm using the ground for the dipper control for the scope. And then over here I've got my power, and then I also have the control wire for the valve. So that's where those are coming from. So we'll go out and kind of drive around and see if I can get it to do it again. And then I'm going to check on here, and I'm going to monitor what I have for voltages. I want to isolate whether or not I have a harness problem or a problem in the controller, or maybe the wiring. I guess it could be loose in that bus bar. It could be a problem down here too. I just want to, like I said, kind of isolate my issue. I don't really think, I mean, I guess everything's repairable to a point, but this harness isn't really set up to be repairable, because you got like 4 or 5 wires in this tiny little harness, so it's not easily repairable. So basically, if I have a wiring issue from here out, I'm gonna have to change the harness. So I was looking at this button again, of the switch for the tip up head, because I searched in the handle. I didn't see any chafed wire. I pulled the wire up and down, and I didn't see anything chafed in here. There's nothing chafed here. I don't foresee really an issue. Like I say, it's not really a repairable harness per se. So if I've got a problem outside the harness, then it might be a problem that's affecting both functions. I don't really think that it's that, just because I mean the wires are separated by a. I mean they're all pretty much like this harness here. It's got multiple wires inside a protective jacket, and that's kind of where it runs. But they're also small. Like I say, it's not really repairable. So one thing I did notice, I was looking at these switches, because I had this out, and these switches here, I think these three are they're like on and off in two different directions. So right now there's actually 4 terminals on this, and they have 2 of them cut off, and then the 2 of them are actually the controls. So when it's up like this, 2 of the terminals are connected, and those are the ones that are cut off. And when it's down, it connects the 2 that are in line. So the way this works is power comes in and it taps off of each one of these, and then when you push the button, it just applies power to the other side of the switch. So when this is up, the 2 terminals that are cut off are supposed to be connected, and it is on this one and it is on this one, but it is not on this one. I actually have to kind of wiggle it around to get it to connect. So I'm leaning towards my problem is going to be in the switch here. Maybe every once in a while it just kind of connects funny, and it might get hot and then make a connection the wrong way. But being that this is already messed up in one position, I'm going to go not literally out on a limb, but I'm going to guess that it's probably the switch that's just all of a sudden making contact. So whatever it is, it's a full contact. It's because, I mean, you saw on the scope, it goes basically right to 12 volts. It's not like it's a little bit or it's kind of bleeding through. It's on, and then it just drops off. So that's why I'm thinking it's more the switch now, just to kind of, symptoms kind of seem to fit a little bit. But like this one right here, you don't really have a lot of play in it. I mean, there's a little bit of play. It's just kind of a button. That one, not so much. That one, a little bit more. But this one, it's got a lot of side to side. So it kind of gets a lot of wobble in there. Granted, that might just be a cap. I haven't taken it apart, but like I say, this is already not functioning right in the one direction. Like, it doesn't function when it's up. So unless I move it sideways or pull it back and forth, and then I can get it to connect, and it makes a connection through. So I'm going to change out the switch, and I think that's going to be my issue for the mower head tip up. And we're going to go for a ride and try to get this to act up again and see what my power is here and there. Like I said, my theory is if the main power is coming down, it's essentially making it doesn't have the differential, or it's not in the middle like it's supposed to be, and it's theoretically raising the controlled voltage, or not the controller voltage, so it makes it look like you're actually controlling it, but we shall see. Well, my idea of the main voltage dropping doesn't seem to be it, because it started to drift in like it was before, and the voltages weren't changing. So it would drift in and then it wouldn't, but like I say, the voltages stayed the same. So I'm a little bit confused as to why it's drifting in like that. I mean, I guess it could be a problem with the cylinder. I mean, you can get leakage through the cylinder, but it's not all the time. I would imagine if it was a problem with the cylinder, it would do it all the time. I guess it doesn't rule it out, but I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's the valve, because if I unplug the connector while it's drifting in, it stops drifting in. So couldn't say it's the valve either. Alright, so I got so wrapped up in thinking it was either a hydraulic problem, or either a valve problem or an electrical problem, that I completely forgot about the electric solenoid that's on the valve. So it's fully possible that that is heating up and shorting out and causing the issue, and it's not actually the control of the wiring, it's actually the electrical portion that controls the pilot control of the valve itself. So what I did was I swapped the two plugs for the what do they call that, the lift and the dipper. So I'm going to run it around until it starts doing it, and either one of these is going to go up or down, or the dipper is going to continue to swing in. If the dipper continues to swing in, then I know it has nothing to do with the wiring, and it is located at the valve, which I don't think it's the valve, because the valve functions pretty well. I don't necessarily think the valve's what's hanging open. I'm going to say that I think it's the solenoid, or the control that's on the side of the valve. I think the solenoids or the coils might be heating up and then doing some things they're not supposed to. At least that's what I think. I have been wrong before. So that's it. I swapped them. So I'm going to see if it follows the wiring or if it stays the same, and then I'll know better where my problem is. Alright, so I let this kind of heat soak. Doesn't even want to work now. And just sat out here. You can see, so it's still coming in on the dipper arm. So it's in the valve, it's not in the wiring. Forced over pretty hard. These ones here, the three here, they're all locked in position because they're being held in the center. These ones are movable. Alright, so I didn't have time to get the camera out. So we're driving it around, and I painted this flat section right here of this valve, because I wanted to see if it was leaking through the valve or if the valve was actually functioning. And the valve is actually functioning. So this here was turning. I think it rotated forward and it was sitting like that, and then it just kind of wiggled a little bit and then went back to flat like that. So the valve itself doesn't seem to be bleeding through, because it is actually rotating. So that means the spool is moving back and forth. So I do believe that our problem is inside this section right here. Well, I'm fairly confident that's where it's coming from, because like I said, I swapped these two connectors and this valve still did it. I checked, like I said, well, I guess it doesn't really matter because we swapped the two connectors and this one still did it, and it didn't move to the other one. So that kind of rules out the wiring. And being that the spool valve itself was sliding back and forth, then it's not leaking through the valve, it's actually being actuated, and these are what actuate it. So I'm pretty sure my problem's going to be in one of these. So I got to figure out what it whether I can buy anything separately or not. If I'm going to change one of them, I'm going to get two of them, and I'm going to change the tilt one for the deck as well, because it's possible that that one is shorting out, and it's because, I mean, you got power coming right to it. If it's shorting across the power, actually, you know what, it doesn't have power coming to it. So yeah, so that's not, it shouldn't be that one of these, because you just got ground and then you supply power to each side to make it actuate. So it doesn't have power coming to it, so that means it's coming from the controller. So yeah, it should still be the button then. Anyway, so that's that. Like I said, I don't know if I can get an individual valve. I don't know if I can get the individual solenoid, or if it comes as a solenoid with the valve and everything, or if I have to buy the whole pack. I gotta see what's involved with that. But I think this video is probably long enough, so I'm gonna end it right here. I'll do another one with the replacement. And yeah, so hope that can help somebody. Thanks for watching.